All right, hey everyone, Math 6, 5.5. Today we are talking about what else? Percents. All right, so the following is something I'm going to yell at you over and over and over because you've got to remember that percent means per 100, okay? So if I'm asking for a percent, I'm asking for something per 100 or out of 100. So let's work on that. All right, so we need to be able to write percents as fractions. Again, percent is per what? Per 100. All right, so let's take 60% and we're going to write it as a fraction. So again, if you're given a percent, what it means is that it's actually a number over 100 in a fraction. So 60% is really just 60 over 100. But we remember we always simplify fractions, right? So 60 over 100. What can I divide both of those by? Well, I could start with 10, so we can do that. 6 divided by 10 is 6. 10 divided by 100 divided by 10 is 10. But I can still simplify further. Divide them both by 2. And so what do you get? You get 3, and then you get 5. So 3/5 is 60% as a fraction. How about 21%? Well, 21% could be 21 over 100. But can I simplify 21 over 100? No, I can't. So that's done. 120%. Again, I don't care what number comes in front of that percent sign. If it's a percent, it means per 100. So you start out with 120 over 100. Now, what can you divide them both by? I mean, you could start with 10. I mean, we could do a little more. If you start with 10, you'd end up with 12 over 10. But you can divide both the 12 and the 10 by 2. So maybe instead of 10, we should divide by 20. Okay, so 120 divided by 20 would be what? 6. What is 100 divided by 20? 5. So what's our answer there? 6/5. Again, you could have gone the little bit longer route like we did up top, divided by 10 first, and that gets you 12 over 10. And then you go to the 6 and the 5 if you want. We did the shorter way. Whatever. There you go. Percents as fractions. Always start with over 100 and then reduce. All right, so now let's write some fractions as percents. We're going to flip it, going the other way. So again, percent though means what? Per 100 is percent per 100. So I need it to be per 100. So let's start with 7/10 here. The problem with 7/10 is that it's not per 100. It's 7 per 10. I need it to equal something per 100. So now we're really just looking at what? Ratios, right? Ratios and rates. And so what do I do to 10 to make it 100? Well, just times 10. But whatever you do to the bottom, gotta do to the top. Times 10. And what do you get? 70. Once you've got something over 100, that is your percent. 70%. Right there. 4/5. Let's do that one. Well, what do you do to a 5 to make it 100? Again, it's a 4 per 5. I need it to be something per 100. 5 times 20 gives you 100. So what is 4 times 20? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. So 4 times 20 is 80. Or 80. So what's our answer as a percent? It is 80%. All right, so I want you to pause the video and try this. I want you to take 4/8 and make it into a percent, and I want you to take 24% and make it into a reduced fraction. All right, so 4/8. You've had a chance to work on this again. If I want it to be a percent, I need it to be per 100, okay? Now, there's a problem, because if you start with 4/8, and let me erase this real quick, and you want to make it into something per 100, the issue with going right from 8 to 100 is that you're not going to be able to multiply by a whole number, okay? Why is that? Well, 8 times 12 would give you 96, right? But if then you go to 8 times 13, it's 104. So what should we do? Well, let's not jump too quickly. Instead of making it into 100, let's make it into something that could then go into 100, okay? Well, what would that be? Well, 4/8, that's a very interesting fraction, and the reason is because it's actually a half. And now that I have a half, this is something you should memorize. A half is 50%. But if you want to kind of take the long way and make sure, what do I do to the 2? Now I can take a 2 and go right to 100 by multiplying by what? 50. So we got to do the same to the top. 1 times 50 is what? 50. And now that I have something over 100, that thing is my percent. What is it? 50. 50%. But again, you guys need to memorize that a half is 50%. 24%, taking that and making it a fraction. So again, if it's a percent, it is that number over 100. But we always need to reduce or simplify. And so we can start by dividing by, let's see, well, 24 and 4 and 100. I could divide by 2, but I could divide by 4 as well. That would give me 6 over 25. And let's see, can I reduce 6 over 25? Ooh, no, I can't. So 6/25 is our final simplified answer. All right, so let's do a little word problem here. 9 out of 12 students come down with the stomach flu. Disgusting. I'm actually just getting over that myself right now, ironically enough. What percent of students avoided it? Oh, and for the record, this is not being filmed during the school year. This is during the summer, so nobody's at risk of getting this, so don't worry. What percent of students avoided it? Okay. Well, again, if they don't give us the percent, we're probably going to need to start with a fraction. Okay, so how about what fraction of students avoided it? Well, if 9 out of 12 got it, how many didn't? The remaining 3 out of 12 didn't. Okay, so that's what we're working with right now. So let's take our 3 out of 12, and we need to turn that into a percent. Again, how do we do that? You've got to make it per 100. Currently, it's a 3 per 12. I need to be something over 100. But I do know that it's going to be very difficult for me to go right from 12 to 100. There is no number or whole number where you can take 12 and multiply it by that thing and get right to 100. So instead of starting with 100, let's start with a blank, give ourselves another equal and another fraction, and put 100 there. So we're going to have one step in between. So what can I turn 12 into that could then go to 100? Keep in mind we have a 3 on top, so I can only divide by so much. Well, what if I could get the 12 to become a 4? Then I can multiply by 25 to get 100. That's what we're going to do. So let's make that into a 4. How do you do that? Well, you divide by 3. Okay, but we got to do the same to the top. Divide by 3, and now we get 1. So this is another one of those common percents you really need to memorize. 1/4 is, what is a percent? 25%. Okay, but again, if you're wanting to be totally sure, we can go ahead and take it one step further and say, well, now what do you do to 4 to make it 100? Times 25. So then 1 times 25 gives you 25 over 100, and our answer is 25%. So 25% of the students did not get the stomach flu. Congratulations if you're in that group. All right, so a couple more quick ones. Let's write some things as percents, such as the number 1. What is 1 as a percent? Well, there's a number of ways of thinking about it. Consider what half is. 1 is really a half and then another half, right? A half plus a half. Well, what's a half as a percent? That's easy, we know that, 50%. So if 1 is really simply 2 halves put together, then isn't it 50% plus 50%, which is 100%? Yeah, it is. That's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about it is, well, I understand that 1 as a fraction is 1 over 1, right? But I need percents to be per 100. So how do I make a 1 into 100? I multiply by 100. So what do I do to the 1 on top? Also multiply by 100, which gives you 100. So 100 over 100 is 100 per 100, so that numerator is our percent, 100%. Think of it like that. And so that should help us here, turning this mixed number into a percent. 1 3/4. Well, let's consider what 1 3/4 is. It's 1 plus 3/4. And we just established that 1 as a percent is 100%. And so now we just really got to work on 3/4 as a percent. Well, this is another one of those ones you need to memorize. 3/4 is 3/4, and that's 25 cents per quarter, right? So 3/4 would be 75 cents. So 3/4 or 3/4 is 75%. So what is 1 3/4 as a percent? It's 100% plus 75%, which is 175%. The other way you can do it is take your 1 3/4, turn it into an improper fraction, which would be 4 times 1 plus 3. 7/4, and then say, hey, how do I make that into a percent? Make it over 100, so that's times 25, and then you'd have to multiply that by 25, and on top you would end up with a 175, therefore giving you 175 over 100, so it's 175%. Two different ways of getting the same answer. All right, that's it for today. We'll talk so much more about this in class, and I will see you then.